This is a Net News Network headline news brought to you by the Behind the Line podcast, bringing you all the crazy, chaotic news from around the United States and the world. Tune in to what you won't hear the MSN talking about. Well, here's some really interesting good news out of Boston. Researchers with the Boston University have developed a strain of COVID-19 that killed 80% of mice infected with it, according to a preprint study released last week, prompting concern and condemnation. Now, why is an American university messing with the COVID virus and making it more lethal? Why are you developing new strains of COVID-19? The team of researchers extracted the Omicron variant spike protein, which they noted has an unusually large number of mutations. The researchers then attached Omicron spike protein, which is a structure that allows a virus to bind and invade human cells, to the original COVID-19 variant, and dubbed it Omicron S. In K18-HACE2 mice, while Omicron causes mild, non-fatal infection, they wrote, the Omicron S-carrying virus inflicts severe disease with a mortality rate of 80%. This indicates that while the vaccine escape of Omicron is defined by mutations in S, major determinants of viral pathogenicity reside outside of Omicron S. We generated chimeric recumbent SARS-CoV-2 encoding the S gene of Omicron in the backbone of an ancestral SARS-CoV-2 isolate and compared this virus with the naturally circulating Omicron variant, the researchers wrote. The Omicron S-bearing virus robustly escapes vaccine-induced humoral immunity, mainly due to mutations in the receptor binding motif. Yet, unlike naturally occurring Omicron, efficiently replicates in cell lines and primary-like distal lung cells. The researchers noted, however, that mice and human immune systems differ greatly. However, Pfizer used mice to test the vaccine before it was released on people. Many things are tested on mice before given to people. So, as a result, if the Omicron S hybrid were to infect humans, it would be unlikely to be as deadly, they noted, adding that the breed of mice that was used is more dissimilar to humans than other breeds subjected to laboratory testing. However, when they infected human cells with the Omicron S variant, they found that it was 5 times more infectious than the Omicron strain of COVID-19. A statement issued by Boston University on Tuesday said that this research is not gain-of-function research, meaning it did not amplify the Washington state SARS-CoV-2 virus strain, original virus from 2020, or make it more dangerous, adding that some online reports Monday are false and inaccurate. In fact, this research made the virus replicate less dangerous, the university stated. The animal model that was used was a particular type of mouse that is highly susceptible, and 80 to 100% of the infected mice succumb to disease from the original strain, the so-called Washington strain. The statement continued, whereas Omicron causes a very mild disease in these animals. The 80% number was taken out of context for the purposes of sensationalism, and it totally misrepresents not only the findings, but also the purpose of the study, the statement said. Nonetheless, the study's publication drew online condemnation and concern. Dr. Paul Hunter, an expert in infectious diseases at England's University of East Anglia, told the Daily Mail on October 17th that he was concerned about what laboratories are capable of producing. The issue is what you're going to be using the labs for. If they're for diagnostic purposes, then you need them. But I don't think every country needs a BSL-4, Hunter said, referring to the top level of biosecurity used in laboratories. If they start having a dual purpose for research that has offensive military implications, that is the concern, he said. And Justin Goodman, the senior vice president of the White Coat Waste Project advocacy group, told the Epoch Times that mad scientists need to be stopped before they cause another pandemic by recklessly supercharging deadly viruses in wasteful taxpayer-funded animal experiments, and called on researchers to stop the madness. There has been widespread speculation that scientists at a laboratory in Wuhan, China, may have contributed to the initial outbreak of COVID-19 in Wuhan. Although Chinese Communist Party officials have officially blamed the emergence of the virus on a wet market in the Chinese city, some intelligence officials in 2021 said they believe COVID-19 either was created inside the lab or had escaped from the facility. I think we all know the bat theory is BS. And it baffles my mind that an American university is messing around with that virus now. We haven't learned a lesson. We just have not learned this lesson. I guess enough people didn't die the first go around. The Department of Defense, DoD, has announced the United States will provide $725 million in additional security assistance to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs as it battles a Russian invasion. This authorization is the Biden administration's 23rd drawdown of equipment from DoD inventories for Ukraine since August 2021. The United States has delivered unprecedented security assistance to Ukraine and will continue to work with allies and partners to ensure Ukraine has the support it needs, the DoD said in an October 14th statement. As part of the assistance, the United States will hand over 23,155 millimeter artillery rounds, 5,155 millimeter rounds of remote anti-armor mine RAM systems, 500 precision guided 150 millimeter artillery rounds, and additional ammunition for high mobility artillery rocket systems. Ukraine will also receive 5,000 anti-tank weapons, more than 200 high-mobility, multi-purpose wheeled vehicles, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, small arms, and more than 2 million rounds of small arms ammunition and medical supplies. Since January 2021, the United States has committed more than $18.2 billion in security assistance to Ukraine, of which $17.6 billion was spent after Russia invaded the country in late February. Since 2014, the United States has spent more than $20.3 billion on Ukraine's security. The DoD announcement follows Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's meeting with defense ministers from almost 50 nations at the Ukraine Defense Contact Group last week, in which the leaders committed to providing the war-torn country with necessary security assistance. Spain is committed to offering 4 Hawk launchers to boost Ukraine's air defense, while Germany has delivered the first of 4 Iris-T air defense systems it has promised to Kyiv. America is in serious trouble, and we are spending record amounts of money and sending records amount of defense equipment to the Ukraine. I think you have to stand back and really question the logic behind these decisions the Biden administration is making right now. An Arizona Democrat has been sentenced to 30 days in jail because of her involvement in a local ballot harvesting scheme during a 2020 municipal election. Guillermina Fuentes, a 66-year-old school board member and former mayor of the border town of San Luis, was ordered on October 13th to turn herself into the Yuma County Jail, according to the Office of Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich. She was also placed on 2 years of probation. Fuentes, alongside her associate Alma Juarez, earlier this year pled guilty to 1 count each of ballot abuse. Fuentes was accused of illegally collecting early ballots from 4 individuals who weren't her family members during the August 2020 primary. Investigators reported at the time that she was using her position in the San Luis community to persuade local voters to allow her or her acquaintances deposit their ballots. According to the report, the Arizona Attorney General's office started investigating Fuentes following a complaint of potential case of voter fraud. Video evidence provided to investigators apparently shows her collecting and filling out ballots at a table outside a polling place. A group of subjects led by Guillermina Fuentes were seen on video manning a table and appearing to be supporting particular candidates. The report reads, a female identified as Alma Juarez approached the table and made contact with a second female identified as Guillermina Fuentes. Fuentes is ultimately observed taking a ballot from Juarez. In the video, it is clear that the ballot envelope was unsealed. The report continues. Fuentes was observed to pick up a pen or pencil and write on the ballot envelope. She then pulls the ballot out of the envelope and makes 3 marks consistent with the filling in of spaces on a ballot to make a candidate selection. Fuentes put the ballot back in the envelope and sealed it. She then retrieved several more ballot envelopes from a folder on the table and handed them to Juarez. Juarez then walks toward the polling location. The video was recorded and sent to the Yuma County Sheriff's Office by Gary Garcia Snyder, a Republican who ran for the San Luis City Council in 2020 as a write-in candidate. Snyder is now running for the state Senate. In a separate proceeding on October 13th, Juarez was sentenced to a 12-month term of probation for her ballot abuse offense, the Attorney General's office stated. Arizona's 2016 anti-ballot harvesting law, upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2021, makes it a felony for someone to turn in the early ballots of other people unless they're a family member, household member, or caregiver. 16 states currently allow a voter to designate a non-family member to return their ballot for them, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. But this isn't happening. Just ask the Democrats. It's not happening. It's all lies. And if it's happening on a small scale in these little places, then you can bet it's happening on a large scale in other places. Well, since Biden's plan to get the Saudis to wait till November to raise or limit the amount of oil that they were producing, thus raising gas prices, Biden has gone ahead and released 15 million barrels from the U.S. reserves. And this morning, he's dismissing accusations that he's releasing oil from the nation's strategic reserves in order to boost Democrats ahead of the midterm elections. Speaking at the White House, Biden explained that the White House would be releasing an additional 15 million barrels from the U.S. reserves. He went on to say that he would refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve when prices fell below $70 a barrel. So no time soon. Asked by our reporter to respond to Republican accusations that the release of the oil reserves was done for a political advantage, Biden dismissed the notion. It's not politically motivated at all, Biden said. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on, and that is making sure there's enough oil that's being pumped by the companies so that we have the ability to be able to produce enough gas that we need here at home. Oil we need here at home, and at the same time keep moving in a direction of providing for alternative energy. Well, the last time he released strategic reserve oil, he sent it to China. And, we have enough of our own oil here to be non-reliant on outside sources for oil if we would just pump the oil we have here. The fact is, 15 million barrels is only going to put a tiny little dent in the price of gas, and for a very, very, very short period of time. It's not going to matter. If we don't start pumping our own oil, then, like he said, it's going to be a painful transition for Americans off gas and oil. He's not doing this for anybody but the Democrat Party. Of course, this is politically motivated. Of course. The Heritage Foundation, in a recent report, has downgraded the strength of the U.S. military to weak. The U.S. military is at a growing risk of not being able to meet the demands of defending America's vital national interests, according to the annual report released by the Heritage Foundation, a Washington-based conservative think tank. This is the logical consequence of years of sustained use, underfunding, poorly defined priorities, wildly shifting security policies, exceedingly poor discipline and program execution, and a profound lack of seriousness across the national security establishment, even as threats to U.S. interests have surged, the report says. Since 2015, the Heritage Foundation has published the Index of U.S. Military Strength based on a consistent set of criteria to gauge the military's ability to perform. The most recent report is for 2023. It is about the number of ships and planes we have. It's also about the personnel, and we're having a very hard time in recruitment because of the woke agenda. that one particular political movement in this country prioritizes over American military readiness, Kevin Robert, president of the foundation, said in a presentation about the report. There is no way, as our scholars report, that the United States can engage in a two-front war, and in fact, we're increasingly dubious that we could even engage in a single-front war because of this lack of readiness, he said. Considering the existential threat in the world, which is the Chinese Communist Party, obviously rejuvenated after Xi Jinping's re-election on Sunday, the United States need to get busy in fixing this problem. Well, we're sending all our maybe extra hardware to Ukraine. You've seen how much they've drawn down the weapons we have available to ourselves now by sending it all there. This isn't going to get fixed as long as Biden and his cronies are in office. The country is weak from the top down, and these other countries, they know it. They're watching. And the battle to get you to stop eating meat continues, especially in Europe. A company called Redefined Meat strikes a partnership to boost 3D printed meat sales in Europe. Israel's Redefined Meat has struck a partnership with importer Garati Meats to drive European distribution to its new meat steak cuts produced on 3D printers, it said on Thursday. The startup, which raised $170 million in a Series A financing round this year, operates large-scale meat printers at its Revat headquarters south of Tel Aviv and a new factory in the Netherlands, hoping to establish its products as an alternative to conventionally produced meat. Early hype about plant-based meat alternatives has embedded as inflation and recession worries make some consumers return to cheaper animal meats, while staffing shortages have hit fast food chains, an important sales channel for plant-based burger patties. U.S.-based Beyond Meat has cut its sales outlook, although food giant Nestle, less exposed to quick-service restaurants, said consumer interest for its plant-based meat alternatives was still strong. Redefined Meat, which makes its products from ingredients including soy and pea proteins, chickpeas, beetroot, nutritional yeasts, and coconut fat, has ambitious plans. Our product is meat. No, it's not. It has the same attributes. It is just manufactured in a different way. Co-founder and chief executive Eshar Ben Sharit told Reuters, adding that production capacity would reach more than 15 tons a day this year. The fact that our products are now being sold by Garati Meats, that same people who sell high-quality meat, shows that they are not compromised vegan products, he said. Okay. Ben Sharit said Redefined Meat was launching tenderloin and strip-loin steaks as their adoption by chefs in expensive restaurants proved their quality. With Garati's help, it will launch its products at restaurants and butchers in France this month, then in Italy, Greece, and Sweden later this year, and in dozens more countries next year. Its new meat is currently available in Israel, Britain, the Netherlands, and Germany in almost 1,000 restaurants that are currently paying about $40 per kilo for Redefined Meat's steak cuts. I don't know what can be said about this. This, in essence, is processed food, and we've always been told that processed food is bad. It's not meat. They keep calling it meat, but it's not. Meat is natural, not a bunch of stuff mashed together and spat out of a 3D printer. If you really believe that cow farts are somehow raising the temperature of the earth, you need to check yourself and wake up. This weird agenda they have to get us all eating goop spit out of a machine or bugs ground up into something they want to call meat. There is something very evil about it. The fact that this stuff also costs more than natural meat, it's just insanity. It's just like everything else these days. People jump on a bandwagon and ride it over the cliff. Sweden has opted out of a joint probe into Nord Stream leaks and is declining to share findings, citing national security. Sweden has opted out of a proposal to set up a formal joint investigation team with Denmark and Germany to investigate the recent leaks of the Russian-owned pipelines Nord Stream 1 and 2. Matt Lundqvist, I'm sure I butchered that, the Swedish prosecutor involved in the country's criminal investigation of the leaks in the Swedish economic zone, told Reuters that the country wouldn't join a joint investigative team from the judicial cooperation agency Eurojust. According to Eurojust, a joint team is one of the most advanced tools used in international cooperation in criminal matters, comprising a legal agreement between competent authorities of two or more states for the purpose of carrying out criminal investigations. Such teams are established for a fixed period that's typically 12 to 24 months. Doing so would mean that Sweden would have to share confidential information from its Nord Stream probe that has been withheld. The Lundqvist told Reuters that the information subject to confidentiality is directly linked to national security. His remarks come after German news website Der Spiegel reported a similar situation, citing unnamed German security sources. It said that Sweden had rejected the idea of sharing information with Germany and Denmark, saying that the confidentiality level of the results of its investigation was too high to share them with other states. Lundqvist noted that outside of the proposed formal investigation team, Sweden and otherwise been cooperating with Denmark and Germany in investigating the Nord Stream leak. For Reuters, a Swedish security services spokesperson said the security police were cooperating closely with other authorities, also internationally, as part of the Swedish criminal investigation. A German Interior Ministry spokesperson told reporters on October 14th that the German federal police have completed their part of investigating the alleged sabotage on the pipelines and handed over their findings. Days earlier, on October 11th, Sweden's outgoing Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said that the country can't share information about its investigation of the Nord Stream leaks with Russia. In Sweden, there is secrecy around the preliminary investigation, and that also applies in this case, she said, the Associated Press reported. Before that, the Swedish Security Service had announced on October 6th that, based on its preliminary investigation, leaks from the Nord Stream pipelines were likely caused by serious sabotage, and the detonations likely caused the leaks. Well, look at all the countries scrambling to cover their butts. Obviously, somebody sabotaged it, and obviously it was somebody with technical equipment capable of doing so. This wasn't just some terrorists that drove up in a boat and blew themselves up. This was highly technical. Somebody with advanced equipment that could get this job done. And since the U.S., said as much not even a year ago that they would shut down the pipelines if Russia invaded Ukraine, those were Biden's words. You can pretty much venture to guess that it was a Western country or multiple Western countries working together to accomplish this goal. And not to mention, it happens on the same day a pipeline opens from Poland, supplying, the same areas the Nord Stream did. How coincidental is that? There's no such thing as coincidence. This, like everything else, is planned and executed. The FAA has issued a warning to pilots across Texas this week about mysterious disruptions to GPS signals in Texas as a runway at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport was shut down. The FAA told Bloomberg that it is investigating possible jamming of the global positioning system that aircraft use to guide them to runways and during their flights. The FAA also confirmed that the Dallas Airport runway was shut down temporarily. So far, according to the FAA, it has found no evidence of international interference. However, the agency did not appear to say what might be the cause. American Airlines told Bloomberg that the GPS problem was not affecting its business, and Southwest Airlines said it isn't experiencing any disruptions. Flight tracking websites ADS-B appeared to have been the first to report GPS interference around Dallas on Monday. Significant GPS interference being reported by pilots in the Dallas area, aircraft being rerouted on to non-RNAV arrivals, it wrote on Monday afternoon. As of Tuesday, according to ADS-B's website, GPS interference was being reported also near Waco, Texas, and near the Fort Hood military base in Killeen. Dan Strufert, founder of the flight tracking website, told Bloomberg that such interference in the Dallas area is unusual. In the U.S., it's very unusual to see this without a prior notice. GPS jamming has always been a risk area. John Hansman, an aerospace professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, told the outlet, "It's not that difficult or expensive technically to jam GPS, which is why we don't use GPS as the only navigation source." In January, officials in Denver issued an alert that GPS was unreliable within a 50-mile radius of the Denver International Airport due to interference. It's not clear what caused the interference. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Mike Rosekind, told GPS World last month that the Denver incident lasted about 33 hours and impacted various infrastructures and systems across the area. Radio systems with no backups were negatively impacted, he said, although wireless and cellular service providers that had backups performed fine. Rosekind said in a report on that incident will come in October. Top federal officials have warned that GPS is considered a vulnerability within the U.S. national security apparatus. Caitlin Durkovich, the National Security Council Director for Response, said in December that the system is still a significant single point of failure in our country because positioning, navigation, and timing is foundational to our life. Yet another known security weakness, and what are they doing about it? Nothing. It's interesting that Texas would be targeted, though, isn't it? Considering the migrant flights that are coming out of there and such. Makes you wonder. Aside from that, I don't think our government takes cyber attacks very seriously, or the possibility and threats that we face with those things. And you've seen a number of cyber attacks on the U.S. since Biden became president. The pipelines, the food distribution, probably the ports, and now this twice in a couple of months. And that's just what we know about. Who knows what else happens that they tell us are just, some other type of emergency. This cyber warfare is going to be the future of warfare. This is one easy way for the country to be completely shut down or brought to a standstill by just shutting off some of our services, some of our infrastructure. And yet, do you see anybody scrambling to do anything about it? Thank you for listening to Net News Network Headline News, brought to you by the Behind the Line podcast. For more, you can listen to us at the BehindTheLinePodcast.com or right here on Net News Network. We can also be found on Facebook, YouTube, Truth Social, Parler, Gab, Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, and anywhere else your favorite podcasts are found. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe and share.